It's time for ROTD Weekend. I have got to tell you that I am pretty delighted with myself right now and with Aldi. I love the Aldi grocery store. So I am hosting, or I guess Marty and I are hosting an improv party at our place this weekend. So it is various friends from different parts of our lives who have done improv classes, including people who've taken improv classes with us. And we're having them over to, well, do improv. I might be a little bit addicted to improv, by the way. Like, I'm obsessed. But anyhow, that's what we're doing one evening this weekend. And I said that I would take care of the food, just sort of light snacks. And I went to Aldi and I got charcuterie and cheese and crackers, 2 kinds, and hummus and pita chips and veggies and dip and French onion dip and chips and some wine and soda and seltzer, enough for 20 people. And it was under $200. I am blown away and so pleased. The thing I'm most excited about, though, wait a minute. No, I don't know if that's true. I'm excited about Aldi and the reasonable prices for doing this kind of party. I'm excited that we're having people over to do improv. But yes, I'm also really, really excited that I get to make charcuterie trays. This is one of my favorite things. It's something that I learned how to do, maybe like 5 years ago. I basically did lots of research and looked at lots of pictures and kind of came up with like formulas for doing it. And actually, I will link to them because, of course, they're on the website. I have like how to make a charcuterie board, and there's even like a map for like where to put things. I don't use the map myself anymore, but I think it is very, very handy. You could like print it out and see how to lay things out. But it has just become so fun. I love doing I'll do sort of a fan of meat in one corner and then like a pile of prosciutto in another corner, and then little like containers of a mustard dip. I'll often mix together like just regular mustard, maybe not like a yellow mustard, but like a Dijon or something grainy with a little bit of jam and maybe a little bit of sriracha. And then it's like a spicy strawberry mustard, like that kind of thing. And I put those little jars, tiny little jars of that on the tray as well. So there'll be like 3 or 4 places where there's meats and then a couple of those little jars of a mustard or dipping sauce of some kind. And then crackers kind of in between the meats. And then the thing that I really think makes it special and pulls it all together is to sprinkle something all over everything. So what I'm doing this time is I have dried blueberries and dried cherries. I also got those at Aldi. Yes, in that list of things that I bought, I forgot to say that I also got the dried blueberries and the dried cherries. But yeah, you do your tray, and when most of the spaces are kind of full, you take the dried fruit and you put it kind of in like little piles of like 3 or 4 in different places and then sort of scatter them over top, and it just makes it look so cohesive. I will say that I've also done this with nuts instead of the dried fruit, but then I start worrying about like, what if somebody has a nut allergy? I've just made the entire meat tray not something they can have, you know? And then the cheese tray, I'll do something very similar for the cheese tray. It'll be like a wheel of brie, and I got a boursin, so I'll open that up so that it's easy to spread from. And then I got some already sliced cheeses. I think there's like 3 in one package and then 1 kind in another package. One of the kinds is like bigger slices, so I'll probably cut those slices in quarters. But yeah, and then fan those cheeses out in a couple of places around there. Crucially, you have the 2 bigger cheeses, right? There's a wheel of brie and then the boursin. So it's just not all sliced cheeses. So you have that variety visually of different things, you know? So there'll be the fanned out cheeses that are sliced, and then the 2 like pieces of cheese or wheels of cheese or like scoopable, spreadable cheese, whatever that is. And then similarly, like little jars, usually I'll just do like a plain jam or a marmalade or something like that for the cheese tray, but it looks pretty because I have these, I keep saying these little jars. What I mean specifically is that I've stayed at some nice hotels or been to conferences at nice hotels over the years where sometimes the honey comes in these little individual jars that have these pretty little like blue and white checkered lids. And when that happens, every time that I have a honey with my tea, I take the jar with me because otherwise they're going in the garbage. So So I have those. And so I put them on these trays without the lids on, and I would put jam in those on the cheese tray. Now, this time I did not get fruit, but if I did have some strawberries, blueberries, grapes, then I would put some of that around the cheeses as well. Oh, I do have some of those left from the trifle that I made for Easter for dessert. I still have some blueberries and I think they're still okay. So I would put some blueberries around, and same idea as what I was saying with the dried fruit or the nuts. You just put like a couple here or there, scatter them around. You don't have to have like a big pile of the berries in one place. You can, but you can also just kind of put them dotting kind of around the tray, and it just brings it all together. It just adds that little bit of color and interest, and the whole tray has something in common. So that is how I make the charcuterie trays. I will link to how to do it in the show notes for this podcast episode, as well as those maps. And yeah, I am pretty excited. I got that really great deal at Aldi. Now I get to make charcuterie trays, and later this weekend, I get to do improv with my friends. So much fun. Okay, I will be back in just a minute telling you about something delicious that I make for dinner all the time that is not a recipe on my website. It's just something that I do that is delicious. I'll be right back. Okay, now the recipe that I make for dinner all the time that is not on our website anywhere is my quick version of chicken parm. Chicken parmigiana. I love this recipe. It's kind of like those chicken cordon bleu stacks that I talk about and the Reuben stacks that I've talked about. I'll link to both of those for you, but it's a little bit different, and it just comes down to the timing of when you do things. But it's so easy because you're not doing any breading of the chicken, none of that dip in flour, egg, breadcrumb thing, none of that. And you don't have to fry it. It's just baked. And yeah, it comes together really easily and is really delicious. So what you do is you season up some chicken. I usually do chicken thighs, kind of like unrolled, so they're nice and flat. And they just go with some oil, salt and pepper, maybe some garlic powder on a pan in a hot oven, like 425 degrees Fahrenheit. And those are just cooking until they are done. So it's like, depending on how thick they are, it's like 20-25 minutes. Now, while they are cooking, you are going to get some panko breadcrumbs. Now, if you are like me, you already have some toasted in your freezer, because I often will toast up panko breadcrumbs for something, and I always make extra, and then the extra goes into the freezer. So if you have some in your freezer already, then you don't have to do anything other than go and get them out. But if you don't have them in the freezer, you need to toast them up. And I do have a recipe for that on Cook the Story that I will link to, but it's very, very simple. All you're doing is getting out a frying pan, like a skillet, and you are adding just a little bit of butter or olive oil, melt that in, and then you add the panko just so that it covers the bottom of the pan. I mean, you can do it quite deep if you want to. You're just going to be stirring and toasting for longer. And then you stir and toast over kind of like medium low until they start to brown. And then you just don't want them to brown too much, like some of them browner than others. So just keep stirring so that they're more evenly toasting. Leave them for a moment, let them toast underneath, and then stir again. And when they're nice and brown, immediately transfer them out of the skillet into a bowl, because otherwise they will keep toasting, right? And then you season them with salt and garlic powder is what I do. And they're going to be perfect and crispy and delicious, and they freeze great. They also stay in the fridge great. I will say that Marty the snacker will snack on them if they're in the fridge. He will literally just take a container of toasted panko breadcrumbs out of the fridge and eat them with a spoon, which is fine, but I tend to put them in the freezer so that I know that I have more later for another recipe if I need them. If they're in the fridge, they're going to disappear. So you make those toasted panko breadcrumbs. And if you've heard me talk about the other stacks that I make that have the breadcrumb topping, I usually don't toast those first for that, but they go on top of the chicken stacks and they toast in the oven. We're not doing that here because we're going to be having the tomato sauce on the chicken in a moment, and the tomato sauce can make the breadcrumbs a little bit soggy. You can do it. I just find that this works better. So you've toasted those breadcrumbs. Next, you're going to get out some tomato sauce, just basic marinara sauce, and you're going to warm it up in the microwave. I actually think it would warm up sufficiently in the oven with the next step, but I just like to make sure it's nice and hot. So it's warm, and then you take out your pan of chicken and you spoon about 2 tablespoons of sauce onto each piece of chicken, and then you top it with mozzarella, and then you put it back into the oven. You can turn the broiler on if you want the cheese to like toast a little bit, and then once the cheese is melted, maybe even a little bit browned, you take that out, you sprinkle those crispy, delicious panko breadcrumbs on top, and then you serve that onto your plates, usually onto some pasta. And that is my super easy chicken parmigiana that I don't have a recipe to link to for you on the website. That's just how I do it without a recipe. You've got to give it a try. I will link to those panko breadcrumbs for you, though, and I'll also link to how to bake chicken thighs, so you have that in case you want that to reference as well. Okay, I will be back after a break to tell you what else is going on in my kitchen this week. Beyond those charcuterie boards, I am cooking up a lot of things. I'll be right back and I'll fill you in. Okay, what is going on in my kitchen this week? So part of how I started telling you guys about what I make in my kitchen when I don't have a recipe is because I want to be kind of keeping track of all the different things that I'm making. Some of them make it onto the site, some of them don't. And the ones that are making it onto the site are ones that I think are quite like straightforward or basic or like staples, like things that everybody should know how to make. I don't want to be prescriptive about that, but like, that it's good to have in your back pocket. I guess that's what I kind of mean. And a lot of that is so that my kids have it. My son is graduating from high school next month. He is heading off to college. He's been cooking a lot more. I want him to have access to these recipes, So there are 2 that I am working on this week that are kind of like the chicken parmigiana in that I've been making them for years without really following a recipe and have decided that it's time to write down what I'm doing. So over the last few weeks, I've made each of these twice, I guess, just like for dinner. One actually I made for myself for dinner and the other as a side dish. We had some people over. I made it once as a side dish and then once as, another side dish, but for the family. So once for like company and once for the family. And I was writing down what I was doing this time instead of just like I'm doing it on a whim and doing whatever. I am paying attention and writing it down. So I am doing final tests on those 2 this week, and I think they're going to turn out beautifully, and then I will do the pictures and the videos as well. So they are spaghetti alla carbonara and a macaroni salad. Now, the spaghetti carbonara, I am obsessed with. I think the way that I do it, it tastes like bacon pasta sauce. It uses pancetta, and then the fat from the pancetta is actually part of what emulsifies with the egg and the starchy water to turn into the sauce. And it's so good with the Parmesan cheese. I love it. But I've also been testing with this one. Oh, it's so exciting. I've been testing how to reheat this one. So I said I made it for myself. I did. I made a full batch, like a pound of pasta with the pancetta and the eggs and everything for myself one night when I was by myself. I knew I was overdoing it, but I knew that I was also kind of practicing making this to test out, right? And then I had tons left over. And it kind of looked like the egg had started to scramble a little bit on the noodles. That's what I thought anyhow. And then I thought to myself, wait a minute, is that actually the egg that's cooked, or is it just drying out because the pasta has sucked up a lot of the water? And I found out that it was the latter. I added some hot water to the spaghetti with that sort of slightly congealed looking sauce and stirred, and it turned into a silky smooth sauce again. So then I knew that it was recoverable and it just needed some gentle reheating with a little bit of extra moisture. And it worked so well. I did it in the microwave and on the stovetop. So I'm very excited about this carbonara recipe because it is delicious, but also because I have figured out how to reheat it in a way that doesn't end up like cooking that egg too much, you know? I will say, if you don't know what I'm talking about in terms of carbonara, a lot of times people think that carbonara has ham and peas and cream. That is like an Americanized version of the dish. It's not the true classic Roman Italian version. The classic Roman Italian version is really just the pancetta, the fat from the pancetta. It's not actually even pancetta. They use something else. Guanciale. I'm probably saying it wrong. They use something else traditionally, but pancetta is fine. And then the fat from that comes out of it. And then it's eggs that you whisk together and you add Parmesan cheese to that. And then you add the eggs and the pancetta and the fat to your just cooked and drained pasta along with some of the starchy water. And you stir. And the heat from the pasta kind of like cooks the egg. Think of it like hollandaise-ish, except it doesn't taste like hollandaise sauce, but the way that the eggs thicken for hollandaise sauce, it's kind of like that, coating each strand of noodle. It is delicious and amazing. And one of those fun, like sciencey things to do. You know, you're just like watching it transform before your eyes. So cool. Okay, so that is the first one that I'm working on. And the other one is the macaroni salad. And what I'm doing for that, I think is really fun, is that I am doing the version that I like, that has the ingredients that I like to put in it. But then I'm also testing it with all the extra little things that sometimes people like in their macaroni salad. So I don't put hard-boiled eggs or relish in my macaroni salad, but I am making my macaroni salad and then testing it with the eggs and the relish and different components so that it kind of becomes a choose your own adventure macaroni salad. You have the base that tastes like a real pasta salad should, and then you have all these different things that you can add depending on like how you love it, how you grew up having it, how you want it to taste. There's all these little tweaks you could do. So I'm very excited about that as well. Okay, and I have to tell you what is new on the site. There's so many delicious things coming out. So what went live this week was a birria tacos recipe on Cook the Story. It is pretty classic, but what I've done for this one is made the cooking of the meat just a little bit quicker because it is quite a longer process. And I also substituted in some more convenient ingredients. Some of the others take a little bit longer, and so this is just a more convenient version, but you're still frying the tacos in a little bit of the fat from the meat and then dipping the tacos in the broth. Birria tacos, love. That is on Cook the Story now. And then live on the Cookful is a new rigatoni recipe. This is a rigatoni with meat sauce, and kind of similar to what I was talking about with the carbonara. You're making a meat sauce and then you are mixing it with the cooked pasta and some starchy water, and it kind of coats and gets like right inside the tubes of the pasta. Really delicious. So that is new on the Cookful. And the other one that was new, I think I already told you about it, the Marry Me Chicken recipe. I love it so much. That is also on the Cookful if you haven't checked that one out. Super delicious. Makes a weeknight special. Creamy, sun-dried tomatoes, basil, chicken, deliciousness. Okay, I will put the links to those new recipes and to all the other recipes that I've talked about, the ones that have links already. I will put those in the show notes for this podcast episode, or you can head to cookthestory.com/ROTD and you'll get it there. Everything there is arranged by date though, so it's helpful to know that today is April 11th of 2026. You click on that episode and that'll take you to where all the links are so you can find everything that I talked about on this show. I am Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookful.com, cookfor2.us, and this podcast recipe of the day. I hope you have a great weekend. Let's get cooking.